Right. Hello, everybody. Robin here on another episode of our live Q&A. I am here with Colleen, and she waved for everybody that's listening. And we're also here with Danny.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Be with you.
Awesome. So what we normally do before we start the recording is we describe and talk to our live audience here about the format of this podcast, how you can ask questions, all of that kind of thing. But we realized last time that I don't know if we've ever said that actually on the recording. So we thought we would go over that in the live recording. So just in case you're ever interested in joining, you kind of get a little behind the scenes around that. I do want to announce that Colleen and I have a Reiki 1 and 2 at the end of May. It's a Wednesday, Thursday, and then she teaches a Reiki Master class, all human Reiki. I'm getting some, hold on. At the end of May as well. So let me get those dates for you, but I just have to get some people muted here. There we go. Okay, let's see. So May 29th and 30th is the Reiki 1 and 2, and May 31st through June 2nd is the Reiki Master class. So you can go to Reiki Lifestyle. Those are online. You can go to Reiki Lifestyle and learn more about those classes and definitely register. So just that announcement. And then also Colleen is presenting at the Wisdom of Reiki conference in June at the Omega Institute. So that's at Omega, their website. Colleen, do you know it off the top of your head?
OmegaInstitute.com.
Okay, great.
And so it's in Rhinebeck, New York.
Rhinebeck, New York. Also, her class that she's co-teaching with William Rand in Japan on Mount Kurama. Her and William Rand co-teach a master class and a Karuna class. The registration for that has opened up. That's in November.
That is the end of October, beginning of November.
Awesome.
And it's both the master class and the Karuna class, and each is a 5-day class
on Mount Kurama.
And it's on Mount Kurama.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go just a little bit over the format that we do. So for all of you that are joining live, a lot of you have heard this. Some of you are new with us. So in order to ask questions, generally speaking, we take them from our live audience first, and then we will take them from the email. However, I know we have a combination here today where people emailed questions and then they're also here live. We do ask these questions in a first come, first serve basis. So there's several ways to ask questions. The one thing that you need to know about being on this episode is that we do put it onto not only our podcast platform, but also our YouTube platform. So there is a video component to this episode. The podcast is audio only, but the YouTube is, of course, video as well. So we do have it in speaker view. So I know many of you might be here with your view and gallery view where you can see everybody in their boxes, but the recording is actually only showing whoever is talking. So if you talk, your name and picture will come up in the recording. But if you don't talk, it won't come up in the recording. There's several ways to ask questions. So you can ask a question just by, I've got a list here and I'll talk about that in a second, but you can ask a question by unmuting and asking your question if you're comfortable being on audio and video. If you're not comfortable with that aspect, you can put your question in the chat or a comment if it's related to what we're talking about in that moment. And I can read it. So for example, if Danny asked a question and she put it in the chat, that's to everyone. I might say, Danny has this question or this comment about this subject. Or if she's next on the list, I would read Danny's question. Okay, so here's Danny's question and read her question on the recording. If you are not comfortable with either of those things and you want to be completely anonymous, or your question to be completely anonymous, then you can always direct message myself or Danny, and we can read your question. So let's say Danny is like, I don't want to be on the recording, or, other times maybe she's comfortable with her question, but then other times she wants to ask a question anonymously for a variety of reasons. You would direct message her, and we would just read the question without your name. And so that way it's completely anonymous. We like to let people know this just because, somebody might have a question that they want to come on here live, but they're uncomfortable being seen or heard live, or even their names written or said out loud. And that is totally fine and normal, and just feel very comfortable with that. As hosts, we're very comfortable with however you need to present your question. That's totally fine. We do, as I said, do it in a first come, first served basis. So what I do is, if you let me know that you have a question, whether you say that now or right now, since we're on the recording, let's just go ahead and put it in the chat. Like, I have a question. You can put that to everybody, or you can put that in a direct message to me, and I write your name down on the list. We don't always get to email questions. So, we try to get to email questions, but because our conversation ends up just kind of going here on our live recording, that we miss out on the email questions. The caveat to that is, if you email in a question and then you join us live, most of the time we get to your question as well. So just so you all know. So that's how you can ask your questions here. I think that's kind of it. Did I forget anything? Oh, one other thing. If you're asking about something that happened in a session, or maybe you've taught a class, just remember confidentiality. This is recorded, so we can edit if we, accidentally make a mistake or something like that. But in general, unless you have expressed permission to share about your scenario or situation that you might have come across with a client or something like that, you don't need to say their name. Just keep that part confidential and just share the situation that happened. I see Colleen.
Or who they are in their relationship to you.
Yeah.
So in other words, like, oh, my sister said this, or my best friend, anything that's really identifiable. So just make it very, very confidential.
Okie dokie. Well, I think that's kind of it. I know we have questions with people who have time frames. So let's go ahead and get to the invocation, and then start with questions.
And did you do any of the announcements live?
Yes.
I can't remember if you already had the recording.
I had the recording started. Okay. Yeah, they're already going.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We're going to go into an invocation. As always, these are channeled, and so I never know where they're going to go. And sometimes it's important for you to be aware of where you are. If you're driving, they can go very deep. And so definitely pay attention to whatever activity you're doing. Sometimes you're able to let the energy just wash over you and continue doing what you're doing. Other times you may need to listen to this another time, pause it, and come back and listen to it. Another thing that just came up yesterday is the awareness of letting people know we have so many invocations, Reiki journeys, and guided Reiki meditations on our YouTube and podcast channels. So if you are ever needing that or looking for it, or missed it in one of our distance Reiki shares or anything like that, we post them really a couple times a week. So, or at least once a week. Anyway, all right. So now we'll get to the invocation. Close your eyes and take some deep breaths. Place your hands comfortably on your body. Open your heart and receive. Breathe deeply now as the light and the power of love travels in on your breath flows into your body and reveals and ignites the power of love within you. There's a strength of this energy coming in today as you have simply said yes to receive it. It is flowing in and filling your body, awakening and revealing the power of love within you. As you breathe in the light and the power of the divine mind, and your divine mind wakes up. The divine mind within you awakens your human mind, your heart mind, your gut mind, your earth mind, all aligned, connected, working together, unified. The divine mind is your divine mind. Your higher thought and higher consciousness is present, and the field of possibilities is open. Breathe deeply now, open your heart and receive. As the divine mind awakens your authentic intellect, your authentic intuition, imagination, instincts, your curiosity, childlike wonder wakes up, your inner truth, inner awareness, and inner guidance is all awake. And flowing through you now, you have access to it. Breathe deeply and receive as you have already said yes to receiving. As you breathe in the light and the power of the divine heart, and the divine heart travels in on your breath, flowing into your heart, shining through your heart light, in front of you and behind you, on each side, above you, below you, and within you. And the divine heart shines within you for you to remember. This is your inner truth, your inner authority, your inner knowing. And as you breathe in the light and the power of the divine earth. It rises through your earth star chakra, below your feet, in the earth. And the light of the earth rises through your root chakra, through your second chakra, right in your solar plexus, awakening the light of the earth within your heart, your voice, your inner truth, your divine knowing. Right here in your human spirit, unified within you, as the light from the heavens flows from above, the light of creation, the source of creation, flows through your soul star, through each of your chakras, all the way through the earth star, unified within. And the colors of the earth and of creation flow through you, and the purity of the colors awakens in each of your chakras, restoring your vitality and vibrancy and life force. The elements of the earth and the elements of creation flow into your body, and you remember your body is made of the earth, and it gives your spirit life and breath. And the minerals of creation, the minerals of the earth, the elements, all awaken within you, giving you strength and vitality in body, in your spirit, in your soul, unified, all right here within your higher consciousness and remembering of who you truly are. As you breathe in and your spirit ignites within you and is revealed to you now. Strong and beautiful, vibrant, vital, your life force present, your inner knowing, your inner truth, the inner knowing and the inner truth of the world around you. Like the tree of life, your branches reach into the heavens, and the knowledge and the wisdom of the ancients flow through your branches on a beautiful breeze of the four winds. From the grandmothers and grandfathers, the ancient teachers and sages, the stones and the trees and the waters and the ancient knowledge that is held within this earth, and the ancient knowledge of the heavens, of creation that you remember. It's right here in your gut brain, your heart brain, and your human brain, your divine mind awake and active. And like the tree of life, your roots grow deeply into the earth all around you. They're made of the earth. And receive of the earth the nourishment and the love of the earth, the beauty of the earth, that this is who you truly are. Your roots grow all around you, and you are stable and strong. Your branches reaching to the heavens, everything in perfect balance within you as your heart light shines through it all. And you remember what a beautiful being of the light that you are at this moment in time in your soul's history. You're here, your divine spirit is here in your human spirit and your divine spirit. One light, one spirit, in different experiences of your soul. And you are here to be in human nature, part of the earth and the circle of life. And your body aligns with the earth and with the heavens. Your body aligns with the rhythm and the heartbeat of the earth and the rhythm and the heartbeat of the moon and the sun, the stars, and the rhythm and the heartbeat of this solar system, this galaxy, universe. You are the universe. The universe is you. Breathe deeply and receive. And divine compassion fills your breath now, flowing into your body. Your authentic self here in your human spirit revealed. Nosa, Nosa. Your authentic intellect. Iava, Iava. Your authentic power. Your personal power as the flame within you ignites and the violet flame grows strong within you. your divine spirit, your human spirit, one light, your light, your breath at this moment in time here on the earth to experience life. The brothers and sisters in the light are here, and the circle of the divine animal kingdom, the spirit of the earth, and the angels and the archangels. And for each of you, your beloved and sacred ones are here with you. The enlightened ones of your heart. Breathe deeply now and receive. As you breathe in the light travels in on your breath and begins to envelop any of the cords and connectors you may be experiencing from the ways and the worries of the world. And through this love and light and compassion and the beauty and the colors and the strength of your wholeness shining through, the light envelops what you release, carries it into the light through the authority of love, power of compassion, and your divine right to be in your wholeness. And so any accords and connectors, attachments, any old oaths or vows, promises, curses, spells, all just simply release from you for you, where they are carried into the light, where they are also healed. Zonar, Halu, Hearth, Rama, Nosa, Iava, Shanti, Kriya, divine compassion fills it all, shines into your body and fills your breath, and reveals to you who you truly are. Heals any of the places where any attachments have been, the results of them or effects of them. Any old thought forms, beliefs. As you're stepping into new beginnings, as the earth and the planets align in these new ways of new thought, new consciousness, innovation, inventiveness, creativity, igniting your curiosity, your intuition, your enjoyment, filling you with the light of joy, childlike wonder. As it's all revealed to you in this great gathering that is here of the enlightened ones, our divinely ordered circle, all who are here live today and those who listen later, here together in this beautiful gathering of love and light. And as you breathe in the light. It fills your breath, it flows into everything around you, the entire space around you, flowing outward in ripples of light and flowing inward in ripples of light, receiving. Be aware of yourself saying yes to your own divine self, your higher human self, your ordinary self, living your daily life with consciousness and choice. innovation, possibilities, opportunities, successes, that they all reveal themselves to you right in front of you for you. Sometimes they're just a flicker and a moment, and other times there's a length of reflection and knowing as you follow your path. Sometimes not knowing the path you follow, just simply knowing to go to the next point of light. And your heart light expands and it shines through you and for you and guides you now. Your logical mind is here and present, as it is as necessary as your heart mind. Your gut mind, your inner knowing, your inner authority, all right here and awake, operating together. Your authentic intellect, your wisdom, your knowing, your gifts and your talents revealed to you for you. How you share it all out in the world is your choice. All of this right now is for you because you have said yes to receiving the beauty of this love and light and life force and vitality from the earth, from the heavens, from within. Look inside and say thank you to you now. Breathe deeply. Take this time. Say thank you to you. And we say thank you to each other. Our circle is always divinely ordered. All of us here today live and all of us who listen later and even those who just, the energy ripples out for their awakening to their own inner knowing. Listening, hearing. We say thank you to the enlightened ones that have joined us and continue to join us. The enlightened ones of our heart and the divine animal kingdom that reminds us of our place here on the earth. We belong here, part of the circle of life. And all of its challenge and all of its glory. We say thank you. We say thank you to the teachers who have come before us to bring us these ways, the ancients that have carried these ways and passed the ways of the light bringer through the millennia, those who have called to the divine in the heavens, the divine in the earth, and the divine within to live lives of love and thriving here in the circle of life. And we say thank you to the descendants. We also listen to you as those of you out ahead calling back to us, informing us as you have shared with us the beauty of our connection with you, that the light bringer energy that we share today makes a difference, establishing it here on the earth, establishing these higher frequencies, establishing our intention to live lives where the divine in the heavens, the divine in the earth, and the divine within are all present. So we say thank you. And we simply say yes. We receive this light and love, the guidance. Breathe deeply as the light of joy fills your breath, flowing into your body, living the light of joy. And so it is. Thank you. And so we also are aware that this is a recording and a podcast, and Rob and I come back pretty quickly from a deep meditation like that, but I have to admit I'm fairly altered. And I like being there, so it's okay. Learning to talk altered, getting linear.
Right. So yesterday at the front of the Distance Reiki share, we had a question from Joe that we kind of started talking about, but then we decided it'd be better formatted for today. So Joe and Colleen, I don't know how you want to continue your conversation, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you two.
Well,
Okay.
Joe, I think it's best if you just ask the question again and I start over.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just talking about, how the game might have changed about introducing DKM, since Holy Fire. I related our history that we both started Reiki in 2000, which is an interesting coincidence. And in 2000, I learned Reiki 1 and 2 at that time. And then in 2002, I was just, what was done at that time with my Reiki teacher was I was introduced to DKM, and for some reason or other, the Tibetan fire serpent at that time. So, which was part of, when I went to study with William in 2011 in the foothills of the Adirondacks, it was my Reiki Master Karuna. And of course, that played a large part, the Tibetan fire serpent. So today, now in 2015, of course, when I went back up to the same hotel to work with him, all the game had changed with Holy Fire. Everything I had learned was like totally different. So very much a relief too, because when I left in 2011, I was wondering if I was blowing and moving up and down straight and all of these various rules, if I was getting it exactly right. But so what I was just talking about, you were talking about your extensive shamanic training yesterday in the podcast, and how that has influenced how you've approached the situation as far as introducing DKM. So I don't even know, now that we have ignitions, I don't know if it's we used to have attunements. I don't know if we call it igniting a person or intuiting a person, when we teach Reiki. So we had left off yesterday where you were talking about, you were including your shamanic training and how you introduced DKM. But if you want to run with that ball from there, that's fine. So I was just kind of like interested now that we have Holy Fire, how to approach DKM. And is that enough material basically for a Reiki weekend, for a course, as far as introducing that after a person knows Reiki 1 and 2, and maybe what you do to amplify a course like that?
So you mean the whole course would be about the DKM or the Usui Master Symbol?
Yes, that was pretty much what happened to me after I had learned Reiki 1 and 2 in 2000. That was in 2002. That was my second session. It was like that.
I just wanted to clarify for people who may not know what DKM is that is the master symbol, the Usui master symbol. So most, maybe all Usui lineages learn that in their Reiki master course, learn that symbol and that energy in their Reiki master course. So I just want to clarify that for people who may not know that.
Right. Okay, so that's a multi-layered question, really, Joe, and it could be answered quickly, but since we're in the podcast, I'll go ahead and answer it a little bit more in depth, because I think it is, there's a historical aspect to it that is helpful to know, including my own history with it. So going back to what we know about Usui Sensei is that the DKM kanji is what the symbol looks like. It's Japanese writing. That really is in Japan, in temples. It's widely used. But Usui Sensei was not known to use it as part of his Reiki. Now, I have mostly personally learned that it was introduced in 1975 by Mrs. Takata, but recently in a podcast that we did with Nicholas Pearson, his knowledge of that symbol is that Hayashi also used it. So there's part of the understanding of it being a spiritual symbol, part of the Jorei system, and also that probably all of them engaged with the energy of it, but it wasn't necessarily part of what was taught in Reiki. So as a Reiki symbol, which connects an energy to it, what we now know is that it is thought that Mrs. Takata introduced it as her master symbol when she developed the first master classes of kind of the style that we do now, where she was able to attune people with this DKM symbol, the Usui Master Symbol, and connect them to the energy of Reiki through training and through what are called attunements. So it was actually a really innovative level on her part to connect us through the attunement to a master training that would work with a Western world and a Western mind and the way that, mostly we operate, and connect it to a course and the Reiki energy, then giving availability of techniques that could be passed on and taught to others. So she trained 22 other Reiki masters using that symbol. And so then that symbol became part of what was known as the 4 Usui symbols. So the power symbol, the mental emotional symbol, and the distance symbol. And by the time you and I learned Reiki, the DKM was absolutely just considered one of the 4 symbols that Usui Sensei used, as that is what Mrs. Takata taught. So really, from the development of the 22 Reiki masters who got together and created the Reiki Alliance, and then each of them were teaching different ways of practicing Reiki with different techniques, but they also all used that symbol as the master symbol. And so then other people began developing other lineages of Reiki. So the one you mentioned was when you studied with William Rand in the late 1980s, he developed what was called the Usui Tibetan Reiki lineage. So in that lineage, the 4 Usui symbols were used. So the power symbol, mental, emotional, distance symbol, and the Usui Master Symbol. In addition, he had been trained in another Tibetan shamanism training that did similar work as the Usui Reiki, in that it worked with symbols. These symbols could be attuned to a person, and they could use those symbols in addition to the 4 symbols. So there were 3 master symbols. And they were part of what was considered the Usui Tibetan lineage. So many of us learned all different ways, and we continue to learn all different ways. The lineages are a variety of teachers who have developed tools and techniques and practices with Reiki energy to receive Reiki and to give Reiki. So now I'm going to fast forward to yours and my history when we go to what I learned when I learned Reiki initially in 2000. I learned from someone who had been trained in the Reiki Alliance traditions and lineage. And so I learned the 4 Usui symbols. And I also learned that the one you're speaking of, the Usui Master Symbol, was only to be used as the symbol to attune others. It was not a practitioner symbol. So because of my shamanic work, I had already been in shamanic training for 3 years, and not a little bit of training, but extensive training for 3 years when I received Reiki attunements, and including all the symbols, the 4 symbols. So I felt immediately guided to use that symbol as a practitioner. And what I found with the symbol as a practitioner is that it was that connection of the earth and of, however you define God, source, goddess, creation, all of the names for it. The literal translation of that symbol is great being of the universe, shine on me, be my friend. And it also is about the ability to reach the Zen level of Satori. It connects the upper and the lower chakras in a practical way. So bringing it from the bigger picture of the energy of the earth and the energy of creation unified within you. This actually ties to the next question that I know we have is, what is our human spirit and our human nature in comparison to our divine spirit and our divine nature? That was the first symbol for me that I found in working with clients that really connected their divine presence in their own mind into their daily body and daily experience of themselves. And what I discovered with it is that often people can have a profound sense of loneliness because they don't have a sense of belonging here on the earth or belonging in their body. A colleague of mine, Susan Pease Bannett, coined that as earth adjustment disorder. And I found that a lot of my clients experience that there's just like, what is this place? I don't get it. Just in addition, the other thing that I found is so many traditions of spirituality teach us to get outside of our body and then we're there. Like then we'll be at peace, is to be outside of our body. This actually was about being embodied. So I started working with it. And interestingly enough, because of the style of Reiki I was originally taught, there was also a level of I'm breaking the rules by using it as a practitioner symbol instead of just an attunement symbol. Because at that time, many of the rules around Reiki were very strict, and there were many wrong ways to do it. So instead of all the right ways there is to do it. So when you and I both studied with William Rand, there was a big difference because you were in 2002, I was in 2003. And by that time, the evidence-based history had been discovered. And it was new. And it was just like, people being concerned about even speaking about it. And through that evidence-based history of Reiki, it was discovered that Usui Sensei did not work with the DKM symbol, that Mrs. Takata likely brought it in 1975. That was the first time that it was present as a Reiki symbol through evidence. At the same time, understanding that it's an energy that Usui would have known, Hayashi would have known. It was a Usui Master Symbol. Many of the spiritual practices were, working Reiki. The word itself is the energy. The techniques and the tools that we use are the system and the lineage. So when you and I studied with William, we got the new version of the evidence-based history of Reiki. And one piece of that was important to understand is that Usui Sensei practiced a very intuitive style of Reiki and a very spiritual style of Reiki, and that he actually was asking to receive the state of Anshin Ditsume, or that place of perfect peace, and that ability to be in his purpose, to know what his purpose was. And that's a state of enlightenment. And so that's what he was looking for when he received Reiki. So then think about that the Reiki energy is what answered that question. So through my shamanic work, of course, I'm very aware of, going into these deep states and listening through these deep states to ask questions and receive answers and be aware of the energy I'm receiving. So at that point, I didn't really have enough experience with Reiki to realize that Reiki does that also. So they were combining always. In addition, I learned the Usui Tibetan style of Reiki. Have always loved it. Always. I still love it. It's beautiful. And the energies of it are beautiful. And I worked with that for 16 years until, well, not quite 16, I guess, however many, from 2003 to 2014. So I guess 11 years. So I worked with that energy, continued with my shamanic training at very in-depth levels, have taught it and taught Reiki all of these years too. So I'm going to go to the piece again to have an understanding, going back to the lineages. Various lineages teach various techniques and tools that give you the ability to connect with the energy that is Reiki, the life force energy that is Reiki, receive it and deliver it, either to yourself or to others, or just emanate it. So the different lineages have developed different methods of doing that. So in shamanism and all of the traditions that I learned to answer that question and how it all tied together, because I studied core shamanism, which means that I studied with a variety of traditions, the techniques of the indigenous people, to learn how they did their work. How did they connect into these spiritual energies that were doing the healing work? And so ultimately, that's what Reiki's doing. It's connecting into this energy. And there are tools and techniques in which we do that. And that's where sometimes the confusion lies is, that's where the rules were. Well, the rules are mostly around the techniques. So the techniques you use are really, there's a lot of right ones. And we know that because we know how many different lineages are teaching such a variety of techniques to work with Reiki. At the same time, we also have commonalities of experiences, and we have commonalities of techniques that through the results, we know they work. So here's an example. Mrs. Takata is the one who developed the foundation hand treatments. That's a technique of connecting with Reiki. When I originally learned it, that was a rule. Like, you do your hands exactly this way for 3 minutes, and then you can move. And we had music that chimed it. So there's a good example. Hayashi practiced hand positions based on a medical knowledge of different illnesses and the ailments that they might use to and anatomy, places they place their hands according to the organs to determine hand placements, Usui Sensei practiced a very intuitive style. So going back to the symbols, what we know now, there's all new history coming out about the symbols right now, is that the symbols have developed over time, the techniques have developed over time, and ultimately, from my perspective, what I see is Reiki answers us in our times of need, in the way we are ready for, in the way we can ask for, and then in the way that we can share, because he was all about spreading it in the world. That was his very first decision. I'm going to spread this in the world. So coming back now to 2014, when the Holy Fire energy came in with William Rand, and that was purely channeled. I'm very aware. I heard it that day. He called that day and said, guess what happened? I received it within several days of it. And he did not know it was coming, other than in retrospect could look and say, oh, okay, that's what that has been. But definitely not thinking, oh, I bet this is bringing me to a new energy and we're going to call it Holy Fire. It didn't have a name. It didn't have the techniques yet. There were two techniques that came in, and this gets to your attunement question. So the attunement is how is the technique we use to connect to the Reiki energy and pass it to another person. It gives each person a direct connection to the energy itself. So now the energy within, the Reiki energy that we're made of, and the Reiki energy in that pure energy, enlightened energy, is now connected through intention and technique. Because we're physical beings, we need techniques. So when Holy Fire came in, the main technique that changed was the attunement method. And so the attunement method, as you said, what we learn in both, in the original Reiki that I used, Usui Shiki Ryoho, and then the Usui Tibetan, the technique for the attunement was very complicated, is very complicated, because it's still probably the most practiced attunement method there is. But even within that attunement style, there's many different ways people do it. There's many different versions of the hands-on techniques. So what we mean by that is that a Reiki master receives in this method, the attunement method that we're speaking of, that is most Reiki people probably still use this, and also the Usui Tibetan techniques and some of the older style of Corona Reiki. So the method of attunement in that is that it's a series of hand positions. The Reiki energy travels through the Reiki master, through their crown chakra, through their heart, and out their hands, and is delivered to the person through a series of steps. So ultimately, it's an initiation, but you have to have a technique for that initiation. So the technique itself is using your breath, using your hands, drawing the symbols. You're in the back, you're in the front, you're in the back, you're in the front. And it's actually very complicated. And many people said what you said, Joe, that you just thought, I'm never going to know how to do that. And so it limited how many people actually felt confident teaching and passing Reiki on to others. So, and again, William did not know why this was going to be when this happened. And like I say, I know because we were in discussion through all of it. And that was the one thing that the Holy Fire said, the attunement method and technique is another method. I don't say new, because Usui absolutely practiced these types of techniques in how he was delivering Reiki attunements. So it was to be what was called an ignition, but even at that, there wasn't a name for it yet. So ignition is a style of attunement using holy fire Reiki energy. Other traditions could decide they're going to do ignitions this way too. So it doesn't have to be exclusive to holy fire, but holy fire brought this technique of attunement in. And in this technique, it is done through a guided meditation by the Reiki master, but we are not receiving the energy. It's not coming through us to the person. The energy goes directly to the person. They receive it completely independently. I'm not an intermediary in it, but I do guide the meditation. Then in a period of silence, they are in their own inner experience receiving the Reiki energy and the attunement. So it is an attunement. Also, what we call a placement is an attunement. The names are different simply to identify them as this format and this technique. They are so how I define the two different attunements is one is a hands-on attunement and one is the guided meditation style. So, hands-on by drawing it this way. So one of the things that I did, of course, I was actually, to be honest, I was pretty resistant to the whole change. I was like, wait, what? This new energy, this new symbol, new techniques, and yikes. And knew that there would be some controversy around it, as there can be. And so I knew personally, again, going back to my shamanic work and shamanic training, that if I'm going to become skilled at this, I need to work with it exclusively and learn the energy from the energy itself. And so that's when I made a year-long commitment at the time that I would work exclusively with the holy fire energy, use the techniques that were presented as part of how it wanted us to operate with it. Why? So I agreed to a year. And then at the end of the year, I thought, I still need to know more, and agreed. And this is a personal commitment. This doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. This is just what I decided to do for me, was to work with the energy for 3 years. And in the entire time, I kept asking it, how do you do? Show me how you do what I've been doing. Because in my shamanic training, I had been doing soul retrievals, all the different past life healings, the ancestral healings, and using the techniques that I learned in that training, also always using Reiki energy. From the time I received Reiki, I always knew that it was going to be my primary source of energy to do any of the work I was doing. So then we had to learn what holy fire was, what its name was, what the symbol looked like, how it worked, what the techniques were, and everything that went with it. And I personally love the way the energy works. And going back to the next question from Kelly, understanding the human nature and divine nature. Here's the scoop as I see it from Holy Fire. And then also Lynn mentioned animal Reiki and how powerful that is in this. And then going back to the DKM symbol. I believe one of the things that Reiki is doing is helping us evolve back to an awareness of our human nature and our human spirit, and that our soul's intended to be here, that our divine spirit, our divine nature is here. We are in it. It is within us and unifying us. Holy Fire is very engaged with unified consciousness on all the varieties of levels that means. And it's healing the separation, the belief in separation, separation from each other, separation from the earth, separation from God, separation from our own self, and unifying us back into our love of being human, our sense of belonging here, our choice of our soul to come to the earth and experience this heaven. We think of the earth as the first heaven, to be in our human spirit, because our body and our nature and our human consciousness is the experience of our soul. And the part of us that exists outside of this reality in other experiences of our soul, which I believe all of us is here right now. Maybe we're fragmented into multiple realities. I haven't really studied that. For me, right now, I'm right here. I'm sitting here. I'm doing my doingness every day and my beingness, and I'm aware that I am in the cycles of the earth and the circle of life and all of the complexities of living on earth, the duality of living on earth. And how do we unify that duality within ourselves? How do we unify our divine spirit so that our consciousness is operating on all levels, still understanding we're going to be human, because that's what we are. And yes, many people can bilocate. Many people can be in multiple realities, are in multiple realities. For me, I have found all the way back to go on to your question about the Usui Master Symbol, the DKM. That was that first one that really brought in that awareness of healing the loneliness that people can feel if you feel dissociated from the earth, from belonging in your body, belonging in the circle of life, belonging here with everything else that's here, including our cities, the nature, the sky, other people, humanity, all of the different life, at the degree that we're curious and want to engage with it, and the personal interests that we have. So to me, it all brings us here. And that's what I've seen personally. And maybe it's also from a personal level, but what I see from Reiki is that it continually helps us to get to that next level of consciousness right now, our ordinary day. It's not somewhere else, somewhen else, it's right now. And for me, that includes using the Reiki energies. It includes the tools and the skills and the techniques, and most of all, the choice to use them. Because that was a training in itself. It's like half the time of, oh, I could have used Reiki. Oops, I forgot. I have tools, I have skills. And I tell myself that all the time. Like, if I'm struggling with something or I'm needing to have these breakthroughs of innovation and ideas or things like that, then I'll think, okay, I have skills and I have Reiki energy. So inviting them in and remembering to do that. But I really do believe that symbol was for me, the big initial beginning of the healing of my human self, loving my human self, and feeling a true sense of belonging in my own body and in my own life. So I told you it could be a long answer and it could be a short answer. So.
Why we didn't go into it yesterday, Jeff. It would have literally taken the whole time.
Robin could hear it. She's like, okay.
She's going.
Yeah. Well, we know because we have these conversations all the time, with it. And, it's another thing when we look at the evolution of it all, as Lynn brought up the energy of the animal Reiki tree of life symbol, all of it. I'm just observing it in my own lifetime and my own experience of like that initial beginning with the DKM, the development with the next symbols, with all the symbols. So it's not just that one, it's all of them, the Corona symbols, all of it, just taking us into a more in-depth experience of ourself here, now, so I think that to me is the big key. Oh, there's the book, Be Here Now. So it's ultimately that. So there's a question that Julie asked that's related. I haven't looked at the chat at all. But
yeah, I've been monitoring. It's okay.
I can answer this question. What is the what is the distress syndrome of not belonging called? This is called Earth Adjustment Disorder. And that was coined by Susan Pease Bannett. She wrote a book about trauma healing, and she is an expert in trauma healing. And that is, also one of the things that, as a practitioner, I would say in my personal practice, both people can be born that way because they're born from another realm that is from another level of consciousness, like the angelic realms or some of the what we think of as council realms, different realms, soul realms, and come here to earth. And it's like, what is this body? The physicality of it and the nature of the duality. I guess that would be a good way to put it, is they're not, they don't have a lot of experience with duality. And so it can be caused because people are born that way. It can also be caused by fragmenting in this life through life experiences, through dissociation. The other reason that I think it's important is because it's also, boy, I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back. That happens. So.
Right. Susan Pease is Pease. Bannett is Bannit. Okay. So then let's see here. Yeah, there you go. Danny put it into the chat. Let's go ahead and move on to other questions. So let's see. We'll go to Meg and then to Kelly. And Kelly had to leave, but I have her question in the chat. Go ahead, Meg.
Can Reiki do soul retrieval? I have like a 2-question thing. Can Reiki do soul retrieval and get fragment, and what Reiki would do that?
So that is why when I received Holy Fire, I went into very in-depth questioning, because my shamanic training was in soul retrieval, and I always used Reiki energy for my soul retrievals. And I had done, I don't know the number, so I always say 3,500 to 5,000 soul retrievals, maybe even more. And so when the Holy Fire came in and everybody kept asking, is this soul retrieval? Because it had the result of healing the fragments of people were seeing that level of result from it. But because of my training and very much at a very in-depth level of awareness of where soul retrieval, the technique itself was developed, that and how it was developed, that the technique of soul retrieval, as I learned it, was very different than how it worked with Holy Fire Reiki. And I did not feel that it was okay with me, okay to call what we were doing soul retrieval when it really was a very different technique. The energy was different, the way of doing it was different. And so to me, it felt like, I guess in today's world, we'd call it a type of appropriation. Although soul retrieval was really only developed in the 1990s. And so it even though different shamanic peoples do work that way, the technique that I was trained in, that most people think of, was developed in the 1990s. And again, I don't know what's with my brain, but I can't believe I can't remember her name. It's just right out.
Sandra Ingerman.
Thank you, Sandra Ingerman. It was developed by Sandra Ingerman, and she was teaching it through the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. So my teacher, Jan Inglesmith, is a colleague of Sandra Ingerman's, was practicing soul retrieval at the time. So that's where I learned the technique. And again, how I learned it was very different than what I was experiencing with the Holy Fire Reiki. The results of it, I say yes, absolutely. Do I call it soul retrieval? No. Actually, what the technique showed Robin and I, because she was working with me very intensely with it at the time too, is what we call the spirit reveal technique. So in soul retrieval, the difference is that the idea is that parts of us through trauma, bring in with other lifetimes, etc., can fragment, and they go, those fragmented soul parts, it's called soul loss, go into other dimensions. And the shaman is working with a spirit guide who travels into that dimension, brings the soul back. And in this case, the technique we used was place that soul part in a crystal, and then through our breath and through the crystal and through the guides and all the energy, blew that part into the client, returning those fragmented pieces of the soul. My teacher always used Reiki as well in her techniques, so I learned it immediately as soon as I started working with Reiki. So the spirit reveal technique is different in that the energy of Reiki is doing all of the work through healing the layers of injury to your soul, to your body, to your mind, here now, that hide you from your view, healing the cords that are connected, any attachments, any reasons that your wholeness is hidden from you. The energy comes in and it reveals to you who you truly are. It activates through epigenetics your cellular memory of your inner truth. It activates your cellular knowledge of your divine wisdom, your human wisdom, your gifts, and your talents, your ancestral knowledge. This is what we teach in our next step classes. So, and that's why, because it came in, and the Reiki energy does it without all the training that we provide, because we learned how to do it through observing what Reiki was doing, not directing it. So we did our Reiki journeys to observe it in the sessions. I would just ask over and over, how are you doing this? Show me the techniques so I can teach the technique, so I can teach other people how to do this. Well, it also showed that it does it whether we even are aware of it, but at the same time, we like to be aware of it because it is incredibly fascinating for us as people and our clients to have a deeper understanding of how Reiki is actually doing its work. It's not required for it to do the work. The results are still there. And so that's a really important clarification. Not everybody is interested in the, going deeper into the knowing of how it works, and it's not required. It's just more of a personal inner calling to know more about it. So that's what we teach in the next step. But Meg, to go directly to your question, just do Reiki. None of it is working because we direct it. It's all, we can learn how to observe it and know what it's doing. We can learn how to engage with it. We can learn how to dialogue with it. But at the same time, that's not required for it to go in and do what it knows how to do. That's its own nature. And so to the how to, use your Reiki the way you use it and invite it to show you how it's working.
I also just want to say, I've been doing Reiki now, Usui Master Teacher and Holy Fire Level 2, for 7 years, and I practice a lot. And I feel like I'm getting through all this psychic garbage. And I feel like, when is this psychic garbage going to end? Like, I realized, like, from the get-go, I had a lot of negative energy, and it had to do a lot with, with my parents and all that. And then now I feel like I'm becoming free of that. And I also wanted to ask, does it help with karma? Does Reiki help with karma?
So to go to your first part, one of the recommendations, and this is something that we have really seen recently, in the last 8-10 years, is shift out of asking to heal the trauma into asking to reveal who you really are, your gifts, reveal your confidence, reveal your inner truth, reveal your talents of this lifetime, other lifetimes, inner knowing. And so what it's doing is moving into revealing who you really are. And then that is the powerful healing, because like you say, some of the trauma that people have experienced, it's so layered and intricate that you could spend every day engaging with the healing of it. So the healing is still going to happen through the revealing. So it doesn't eliminate the fact that there's healing. But what it is going to do is empower, like ask for that empowerment to keep coming in, ask to have your wholeness revealed to you, and set that intention at the beginning of the session. So for instance, if you listen to the invocation today, you can see how the energy came in to fill you up first. Then it released those things that needed to be let go. Then it came in and said, now you're getting filled up with your curiosity. You're getting filled up with your innovation. You're getting filled up with, today, there's been a very big focus on the light of joy. So you can ask for those things to be revealed within you. As far as karma, that is such a big question. And I'd like to put that at the end because it's a big question, and I want to make sure that we get to some of the other people's questions, if that's okay.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll go to Kelly's question. What is the difference between human nature and human spirit, and how would you define human consciousness versus animal consciousness? I know you kind of talked a little bit about it before, but I wanted to ask and answer, I wanted to bring in the answer and the question in a little more linear way, since it was kind of put into the other conversation with Joe. So I would say, my viewpoint on this, and everybody is going to have their own viewpoint, and there's a lot of different viewpoints about this topic. So really the full answer comes into your own inner truth about the difference between human nature and human spirit, right? Like that's kind of one of the age-old questions, where does spirit and soul and human nature come into the equation? And different spiritual belief systems, different religions have different takes on it, and different, everybody's going to maybe have their own inner guidance around it. So definitely ask Reiki the question and see where it guides you with the answer to that question, to these questions. I would say that human spirit is that kind of God spark, that spirit that's within, that is not affected by the experiences in this lifetime, the experiences in past lifetimes, the experiences on this planet or from anywhere else, any other realms that we might come from. Our spirit is, that always, that wholeness, that always whole God spark that's within all of us. Whereas our human nature is the being born into these bodies, being born into this planet and this time, being born into a human form, and all of the qualities that humans have. And we are all going to have different versions of that personally, based on so many different things, right? An infinite number of things. But our human nature is this form that we take here. But the spirit that's within doesn't change based on that. So many people have experiences from being other forms in other lifetimes, maybe here on this planet, maybe from other planets, maybe from ethereal realms that they have taken in different forms. And that might be that nature. So let's say, I'll take a relatively easy example because it's one of the more well-known examples that let's say you're a starseed from, a galactic realm, and you have memory, you have nature from that realm. The spirit is still the spirit inside, which is that God spark, that individuation from pure love or consciousness, however you define it. That's still the same within. And then we individuate further down, and we have our own nature as far as like what forms we are taking within that. Now, each of our natures could be slightly different as far as how that's expressed here on the planet. However, there's still a nature to being human. There's still a nature, humans, and we say this often enough in our animal Reiki classes and other places, humans are still going to have human nature. Cats are still going to have cat nature. And this will kind of flow into your the other part of your question. Horses have horse nature. Mushrooms have mushroom nature. So there's this idea that in the species that we all might take form in, we have the different types of nature that each has, but within there's still that form of spirit, that form of consciousness that is always there. And I would say, I don't want to say never changing, because that's maybe not how I mean that, but that it's not based on the forms that we take in the physical realm. And then as far as your other question about animal consciousness versus human consciousness, I think on the deeper level, there's not a difference. This is my own opinion. This is my own experience, I should say, is a better idea, or better word for it. It's my own experience of what I have experienced with animals and animal Reiki and journeying and, this just spiritual exploration. I think on a spiritual level, there's not a difference between the two of us. I think that when you get higher up, it all becomes one, right? And there are moments or times that here on this plane, we can have that be in that full remembering of that oneness that we have with the animals or with the trees, with our surroundings, with the stars, as Colleen's invocation expressed. So there is that aspect that I don't really think that there's a big difference in the consciousness. However, we come here to, again, as I said before, to take different forms. So yes, we have different nature, we have different remembering, we have different ways that we express into the world as far as humanity versus the animal kingdom. But at a consciousness level, I actually don't believe that there is a difference within us. I just think that when we take these different forms, that's where the consciousness, or that's where our natures differ. I do think that because animals are in animal nature, that they have less layers that occur for them. They are more connected to that oneness because they don't have the layers that contribute to that forgetting. They understand the cycle of life and energy, I think, greater than we do as humans that create that forgetting. I think that there's maybe a little bit of a trade-off for the way that we experience the worlds that, we know that humans have a certain experience, a creation, a creativity that we express into the world, and that we experience the world in a certain way. I don't want to use the word intelligence because I think that it's just different types of intelligence. But then because of that, we also do have more layers and more layers of forgetting than animals do. And the experience of nature, the experience of oneness, the senses that we might experience and how we can connect into that, where animals just are. They are nature. They are, they do experience themselves in a similar fashion to all of nature. I had this session with a dog once that showed his experience of the grass and how the cells in him is the same as the cells in grass. I mean, I know that there's a biological difference, so I don't mean it that way, but that he could smell or she could smell the cells in the grass moving. And because of that, there was just this almost like the Matrix idea that it's her sense of smell was experiencing nature in that way. So there was no separation. There was only oneness within it. And I think as humans, that is something that we can experience because of our large brains, because of, who we are and us communicating over technological platforms from all over the world. But because of that increased those increased ways in which we experience the world, we do then also have these additional layers that create all of that kind of idea of separation around it. So that would be how I would kind of explain the difference in human and animal consciousness. But I don't think that there's a difference once we get down onto the spiritual level with it all. So Colleen, I am sure that you have additional thoughts on that.
I think you did a great job explaining it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what the conversation might look like after a Reiki session with a client. I want to make.
I have it in kind of a condensed form.
Okay, great, perfect.
I put it into chat.
I was wondering when you said you had a
Yeah.
condensed version.
So, as a Reiki practitioner, how should I communicate physical sensations and visual information experienced during a session to clients in a meaningful and professional way? How can I ensure that what I share provides value and understanding to the client? So the first thing is, with this question is essentially how do you share? And in particular for this person, their style of intuition is more sensory. So this person feels the energy in their body with what is going on for the client. It's very much sensation-based intuition. So how do you explain that? Well, the first thing is to trust your style of intuition and allow it to share how it comes through for you. And using Reiki energy to help you with that. The other piece of it is not everybody shares intuitive impressions after a Reiki session. And it is sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't. It also is never required that you share if you feel uncomfortable sharing. If there's, let's say you share with a lot of people, but there's one particular session and you're like, I just don't want to say what I felt coming through. Or maybe you're working with a client that it would be very outside of the box for them to receive intuitive impressions from you. All of us can receive intuitive impressions through Reiki in a variety of ways because of our intuition works in a variety of ways. So to get specific about how would you personally share about your experience, just share your experience. It's not really our place to interpret it. It's really more of our place, if we're going to share, is just share what was revealed to you in the way that it was revealed. And then, of course, having discernment about what comes through and if you want to share it and if you think it might scare the person or be inappropriate or be misinterpreted. You always get to use your discernment about what you share and how you share. So mostly, though, you're just going to share it your way. And sometimes people will give you feedback that completely validates what you said. And other times people do not give you feedback, or sometimes people will even say, oh, I don't really relate to that. And sometimes they are hidden things that they're unaware of. In your case, where it's very physical intuition, you have to be careful with your discernment in that they don't take it to mean they have a medical problem, or if you find you want to, then you would want to get training for medical intuition. So that's a level of staying within the scope of your practice in that part of it. But at the same time, use Reiki and particularly the mental emotional symbol to help you find the words that you may want to share. Also being comfortable just saying, well, it was a deep level of relaxation, and let it be at that. So another person may see pictures, you don't know what they mean, but you just share the pictures. Another person may hear something auditorial or smell it, and we really just share it rather than interpret what we think we've seen or heard or smelled or felt. So, Robin, do you want to answer and add to any of that?
No, I think what you said was really good. One thing that I would also suggest, if you're kind of figuring out, what you are, your style, and maybe even impressions that can come in, but you're like, I'm just not sure, I'm not super comfortable, sharing them yet, is spend a little time after the session and start to write them down, because what that can do over time is help you to develop your intuition. As Colleen said, there's a lot of resources out there to help you develop your intuition and those kind of intuitive impressions. But then also, if you start to write them down, you might start to see trends, patterns. That's the word I'm looking for. Patterns over time, your style over time. Writing it out can also help that processing aspect of it as well. Because sometimes if you're talking about it to a client, you might hold back. Whereas if you're writing it down afterwards, you can just write freely all the things you experience, all the things that you maybe would have shared if you were more comfortable or more experienced, I would say. Because the thing to know about any of that is it's a skill, and that you do start, continue to learn that skill over time. And it's a skill that you can also develop. In the meantime, I agree with Colleen, discernment is important. And the discernment and that not sharing doesn't change how the Reiki is or isn't going to work with any of it. So that's the other thing to know around it. But that, you can certainly develop it.
Yeah, that's really good advice to write it down. And it's been a while because I'm a channeler, but I do write the notes after the people have left, but or have finished the session. But also, that is what I used to do, is while they were still kind of coming back from the session, I would just pick up my notes and, just do some really automatic writing with that. That's a really effective way. And then the other thing I would just add to it too is sometimes part of it is, getting to understand your accuracy and confidence in your accuracy. And so that's also where the discernment comes in, that you may share more with one person that you know well, or I'm confident that they're comfortable with it, than another person that you don't know well. And then also, went out of my head again.
There's a follow-up question of like what to say to a client when they ask what this means when sharing.
Well, I always have people ask themselves what it means, because it's, again, I'm not interpreting. Also, I'm not a counselor. So I'm very clear about the scope of my practice. Oh, here's what I was going to say is also, if I'm sharing something that I've received, I will give a caveat of, I have no understanding of this, but here's what my experience was. But I definitely stay out of interpreting for people. And maybe for some of you that would be part of it. So it's not, to say that it's incorrect. It's just not my style and how it works for me. I don't interpret what things mean.
I would say if I don't know what something means, what I will actually say is this is what came through, and I'm not, gosh, I'm trying to think of how exactly I word it, but it's something along the lines of I'm just going to share rather than evaluate what this means. So that's usually the words that I use, and I have a pretty kind of standard line that I'll say in that, because it still happens, even though I'm the same as Colleen. I channel out loud, and in those there's still times where there'll be something that comes through, I'm like, I have no idea what this means. So I'm just going to share it rather than try to interpret, try to evaluate. And that's usually the word that I'll use is not evaluating.
And then have them listen for it. Because it's really, the whole thing is Reiki is trying to take us to our own inner truth rather than somebody else telling you what is true for you. So if you ask a question about an experience in it, it really is for the person to find their own inner truth around it rather than us to tell them what their truth is.
How to use the power symbol for space clearing. Because it's always says it's a, how do you clear a space? This is in the 1 and 2 manuals that it's a good symbol for clearing a space, and then also filling a space, but it doesn't actually give you the technique on how to do that. So with that, I think there's going to be different ways that people would explain that, but I use the power symbol, which is the one that looks like a swirl. It's CKR. And I either imagine, depending on the appropriateness of the situation, or actually physically do it. Now, this is just because this is how my brain gets there. I think that you could not do any of this and it would still work great. I use the intention with the power symbol and I kind of lift the energy into the light, or imagine the energy in the space lifting into the light. So I have the power symbol activated. I might draw it into the room. And if I'm at distance, because I'll do house clearing, like with clients, or like this needs to be cleared. I'll do it at a distance and kind of do the same thing, even though I don't know what their room or home or space might look like. I just kind of have that intention, because Reiki is an intelligent energy, knows where to go, what to do. So you can simply think or state or hold the intention of, I would like this space to be cleared, and it's going to do that. But if I'm in my own room, just as an example, I actually either will physically lift the energy into the room using CKR, or all kind of, that's what the imagery looks like to me. And that's going to be different for so many different people, but that's the technique that I kind of use. And then to fill it back up, I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to draw the symbols in the room, the symbol into the room, or I'm going to beam Reiki, or I might use Reiki with my eyes, which is Gyoshiho, or I might, with my breath, which is Kokiho, with the power symbol. So that's one way that I kind of do it.
Well, and truthfully, there are so many different ways, because part of your question was, so often people say just use Reiki, and what is the how-to? Because there are so many how-tos is the first thing. And so you can, play with it and see what works for you. I will do many different things. And probably the first thing is, when do I notice that I need to do space clearing? Fairly often. And I notice it specifically in certain rooms in the house. So the kitchen is one of them, and the bathroom is another one that I notice, and particularly in the bathroom, and also where it's a shared space with somebody else that may be having thought forms and things like that need to be cleared. So those are thought form clearings. There's also, space clearing of negative energies or entities, things like that, which is a whole other subject too. But the other one that I really like to use for me is using salt. So I will use, and we have this somewhere on our YouTube channel from a long time ago, where I will actually take an oven safe bowl, so something that's not going to crack because it gets hot, And I personally line mine. I have bowls that were specifically made for it and imbued with Reiki. And so I will use the bowl, I line it with foil, put in Epsom salts, and then I'm using either 91 or 99% rubbing alcohol as an agent for the flame to burn. You could also use a candle and just have a small flame if you're uncomfortable with it. Then I add Reiki energy into the salt, into the whole thing, with the intention that the energy will go into the salt, and what ultimately happens to it, because I've also used the distance symbol, which is a bridge of light, is that any of the negative energy that needs to be healed actually will go into the light through that bridge of light where it can be healed too. So there's different ways of doing it. People use sage. To me, sage is a little bit more of a brush off that I might use in conjunction with like drawing the symbols. And so I've also, part of my training was using drumming or rattling for space clearing. I've also done a lot of space clearing, even through the distance symbol, in sessions where the guides go in and they do all the space clearing. And my intuition is metaphorical. So the way it shows it to me is all these little angels or fairies going through, and they clean everything, almost like a Disney movie. And they go in and they clean everything and they clear the energy. So that's why I say there's a lot of different ways. We have a couple of articles even that talk about this, not only about space clearing, about this. One of them is how to imbue sacred objects with Reiki. And the other is the one that I really like, that it talks more about the salt, is Reiki heals mind chatter. Because with mind chatter, what I've noticed is if I have, let's say I go into some negative loops of my mind, which does happen. I'm better at it now, but for sure when I was younger too. And now I have Reiki, not just youth, but I have Reiki now. But one of the things that I noticed with it is I can leave like kind of unwanted energy trails. And so that's why I wrote that article, is how do you heal those? And so that's one of the ones. And those are on our website under Reiki Library. So it's, again, that the answer can be kind of nebulous because there's so many right ways to do it. You could read books on space clearing. Some people are more, very specific. If I were doing space clearing, because mostly I do it for myself or with clients, but I don't do like where somebody calls and says, can you come and clear the space of my home? I'm getting ready to sell it. I'm not like, that's not part of my practice. If I were doing that part of the practice, I would probably really develop more rituals or techniques around it that I like to use, but always the idea that the power symbol can remove the energy. It can also fill the space back up. So your technique is going to involve what are the symbols you like to use? The distance symbol is a bridge of light to the light. So everything that you end up released goes into the light on that bridge of light. Then any of the other symbols. So, I would draw the power symbol, then I would draw the other symbols. I'd draw the power symbol on all the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and then all of the other symbols into the center and spread them around. If I'm able to do one room at a time, I might do that. But one of the questions you asked is, what would you do if it was a skyscraper? Well, I wouldn't have the ability or the time to do that. So that's when I would invite Reiki to go in and do that work where it is invited, because if you were in somebody's home, that would be something that, would be between Reiki and the people in the home as to whether or not it filled the home. But you can do a large amount at one time. Absolutely. I've done land that way. I've done homes that way. I can't say I've done a skyscraper. But yeah,
I would say
very
skyscraper,
good.
you would use Gyoshiho,
Oh yeah.
far away.
Reiki with your eyes. If you're seeing it, could be at a distance. Again, to me, the big ones is get that bridge of light activated. So everything that gets released goes into the bridge of light to the light. And it's not your job as the practitioner to heal what is being released. It just simply goes into the light, and the Reiki energy and the guides take care of that. So I hope that answers it. I know, what I'm hearing is, boy, maybe we'll have Karen Hefner is scheduled to be on our podcast. Maybe we'll ask her to focus on that because she does a lot of space clearing as a practitioner. So she's a person you could call to do space clearing, and so maybe get some more specific techniques, because I am one who just kind of uses my intuition in the moment I'm working with it.
And just know that you can start with intention. So if all of that feels overwhelming as you're learning it, start with intention. Ask Reiki, okay, power symbol, please come in and clear this space. And, obviously you need to be polite to it as well. I'm kidding.
Get it done.
Please.
Yeah, I've got a schedule.
Yeah. So
actually, I've said things like that, but in a nicer tone.
Yeah.
Like, could you do it quickly, please?
Please. So just start with intention. My intention is that the power symbol or Reiki energy in general is coming in to clear the space, and, just send Reiki to the space and know that Reiki is going to take care of it. And then on the other end of that, again, an intention that Reiki is also filling the space with Reiki energy, and that includes the power symbol. So
yeah,
that's it's a great place to start.
Yeah, there's really the letting go and the bringing in. Yeah. Still, what is being released, and then fill it back up. Oh, the other one that I really like to use, by the way, Reiki Chants by Jonathan Goldman, the music. And that is on YouTube and also purchasable. So that's a great music to use. I even will just have that playing in the background in my house just to keep my house full.
So since this is the last person in question, if we can answer this one directly as well. Can you speak about those of us who may have other types of energy that we work with in combination with holy fire? And do you experience holy fire as feminine energy?
Do I experience it as feminine energy?
Yeah, but I would say probably the bigger question here is combining Reiki energy with other forms of energy work, or if you have energy work or energy, already. But I would say it's the combination of other energy work.
So the first thing is that Reiki energy and all lineages of Reiki energy are compatible with other energy methods. Not all other energy methods want you to combine energies. So for instance, I have been in shamanic trainings, not my particular school, Light Song, but other schools where they ask you not to use Reiki energy in their ceremonies. Or I've heard of some of the silent retreats where they ask you not to use Reiki energy, or you may have professional licensing that it's not appropriate to use Reiki directly on a person. So it's more that Reiki is compatible with other modalities, but not all modalities want you to mix modalities. So that's out of respect. So if I'm in that kind of a modality or that kind of a ceremony, I just respect it. However, I do use the Reiki energy for myself. I do still always take care of my own energy. I still always surround myself with the Reiki energy in anybody's ceremony, any energy, anything. I have my energy activated that I work with Reiki, but I don't always expend that out to theirs. My own work I've always combined my Reiki energy with my shamanic work and my shamanic influence in Reiki energy. To me, they can't be really separated. So that's one part. What was the other part of the question, Robin?
Just combining it with other energies and energy work. And then there was the question about the feminine energy.
Oh, the divine feminine. I do think that Reiki energy is helping us to access the divine feminine in more powerful ways, and that it is really helping it to be empowered on the earth. The energy itself, I think, is beyond the divine feminine and masculine, and then it also is the divine feminine and masculine, and then also according to what we need with life force, is it going to have a greater influence of one or the other? So in the invocation, for instance, it really talked about receiving, and receiving to me is very much of a divine feminine energy. And for me, I really needed that because I did not have access to it originally. I had to learn to really receive that feminine energy and let that flow through me. And so I would say it's individual. At the same time, I also think that it's pouring onto the planet in very powerful ways. And it's also healing with the divine masculine as well, in bringing in balance. So I think it's both. And I also think the energy itself originates beyond the divine masculine and feminine, where there's, the origin of all is pure consciousness. And then I see it coming into these next levels of creation. And so masculine, feminine energies would be, another level of creation. But then as it moves through all of creation into physical form, human nature, human spirit, tree nature, tree spirit, etc.
All right. Well, I think we were able to get through the majority of the questions. I think mostly all of the questions that were here. So I know that there were some additional kind of side comments or questions, but I think we got through all of them.
Well, I do want to say one thing because I'm super excited about it. We have a podcast that we're recording this afternoon with Brett Bevel, and he's going to talk about how he uses Reiki and attunes trees and stones and objects. And so that won't be posted until I think it's the end of May, but just so you know, when it comes out, it'll be in a couple of weeks, but I'm really excited about our conversation. So we've had just some fantastic podcasts.
Had some bangers recently.
Yeah, it's really,
especially if you're interested in the history of Reiki. We've had it just ended up this way. We had some good ones in a row that had that.
Yeah. And Brett Bevel is the person who hosts all the Omega Institute retreats. So anyway, all right.
All righty, everybody.
Open the circle.
And we will see you next time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.